morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I hope there will be a few more that join us along the way, but we want to take advantage of this time with this wonderful Alumni Forward panel from the class of 2018. Yes, absolutely. They have been making pretty incredible things happen for themselves over the past 5 years. I'm going to read just a few of their highlights to you to introduce them. So all the way on the end is Caitlin Alley. She is a graduate of the School of Film. She's been working extensively with some of the best storytellers of our generation, like Aaron Sorkin, Destin Cretton, Lena Waite, and Melina Matsoukas, and so many more. Lots of different projects, short films, web series, social media spots, commercials and political ads, indie movies, and Juggernaut studio projects. Don't know what that is, sounds amazing. Her current work in progress, which she's been talking about and is really interesting, she's the writer and director of Pause Play, a short film backed by the Dolby Institute and Ghetto Film School through their Finish the Script Filmmaker Challenge, and it will be premiering at the Academy Museum in April. So Caitlin is really doing some incredible things. I'll go in order, so I'll skip my alphabetical. So Gabby Loren is next. She's a professional dancer, educator, and rehearsal director whose calling is to provide every individual she comes across with the tools to attain their goals. She's based in New York City. After graduation, she joined the Bessie Award-winning Aggie Z and the New Utility. She's performed on main stages at Jacob's Pillow Festival, New York City Live Arts, and was also handpicked to be one of 7 dancers to perform in Paris, France at the American Center for Arts and Culture. I think one of her projects is really interesting, how she translated dance as a member of the foundational team responsible for instilling dance as a core group fitness class at both New York City locations of Chelsea Piers Fitness. So figuring out ways to embed dance in the fitness experience there in New York. And she is an assistant to internationally recognized choreographer and UNCSA alum, Jewel Lane. That's Gabby. Tiffany Chen, also based in New York City. She moved the summer after graduation to complete her costume apprenticeship at the Juilliard School. And she still does projects with them. Currently costume designing 2 new dance pieces at the Juilliard School. She's done Into the Woods on Broadway, Oratorio for Living Things, and Christina Wong's Sweatshop Overlord off-Broadway. And she was talking about how she made a pivot during the pandemic to really delve into digital art and reshaped her business, and is doing a lot of work alongside the costume design she's still doing. So some interesting insights to share. Thank you, Tiffany. Jordan Boatman, graduate of the School of Drama. She has appeared in Bull and The Good Fight for CBS All Access, as well as Hulu's The Path. Originated the role of Zoe in the world premiere of Eleanor Burgess's The Niceties. And that was right after graduation, right? First project out at Manhattan Theater Club, McCarter Theater Center, the Geffen Playhouse, and Huntington Theater Company. She won an Elliott Norton Award for Outstanding Actress for that very first project. And she starred in the Cape Playhouse's Murder on the Orient Express this past summer, and upcoming film Rob Peace alongside Chiwetel Ejiofor. Georgia. Thank you, Georgia. So Sarah Forbes, for those of us that knew her when she was here, she was Sarah Michener, so has since gotten married. She is the piano, voice, and guitar program manager at the Merritt School of Music in Chicago. After she left us, she did a grad degree at Northwestern, and from 2018 to 2021, she managed Colvin House, a historic event venue in Chicago, and curated multiple concert series to provide performance opportunities to students in the Chicagoland area. She also pursued her love of teaching and holds her Suzuki certification in both piano and flute. Thanks for being here, Sarah. And Hacian. Hacian's our moderator for the day. I hope he'll weigh in as much much as he would like as well. But School of Drama grad and also student body president from the class of 2018. New York City-based actor and movement specialist. Since graduating, he's been working in film, television, and theater around the country. He's been on Madam Secretary, FBI, and Blue Bloods. Just wrapped The Tempest at Roundhouse Theater in Washington, D.C., and a relatively new Helen Hayes nomination for his work as a conjoined twin in The Tempest, not your typical Shakespeare, perhaps. And during the height of the pandemic, he produced a web series titled Angels of Uptown. He wrote, starred in, and co-directed, and is currently in pre-production for another independent project, Say My Name. So, amazing talent. That is all I have to say. I'm handing it over.
Okay. All right. First and foremost, thank you all for joining us this morning. I think the format here, we're going to keep it pretty chill. I have some questions for our wonderful panelists here. But also feel free, if you have any questions, anyone truly, about our experience since we graduated, or even compared to when we were here, feel free, just, actually, I don't know, you don't have to raise your hand. We have a mic here. You can just come to this mic here to ask. I guess if you're nervous standing up in front of everybody, you can also raise your hand and maybe we can flatten the mic. We'll see. But yeah, so, my friends, to kick it off, I would love to hear what was most surprising to you post-grad? Like, when we first got out into the world, what was the thing you just didn't expect? Don't all speak at once. We gotta figure out routine themselves.
Most surprising thing post-grad was graduating. Like, I was telling some of the students that, like, the day I graduated, I flew out from Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles, and it was like, looking back, I'm like, that was so chaotic, and I didn't have time to process, like, this really big life decision, and, like, the fact that I, like, powered through 4 years here, and I, like, a few months along, and, like, looking for work and getting jobs here and there, but, like, just being able to sit and process that, like, I'm in a new chapter of my life, and I'm, like, finished with, like, education, basically, for now, and, I'm starting to go into the workforce, and that's, like, a crazy thought, that, like, this is what I'm going to be doing full-time. So that was, like, the most surprising thing to me post-grad.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. So I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida, which is like small city, big city kind of feel. So my thoughts were I wasn't moving to New York. Too cold, I'm never doing that. And after school, I graduated and I was like, well, I kind of have to move to New York. I feel like that's the only way to go now. And I think just the support from the Pickle family, the people that reached out to me to be able to move to New York City in such like a smooth transition was the best thing that ever could have happened, and also the most surprising thing that, oh, I'm in New York now!
I think the most surprising thing for me was similarly to what you guys were saying, but I got a job, my first job, pretty soon after graduation, and I think I was very surprised to, start rehearsal on the first day, and there wasn't anybody to look over my shoulder or make sure that I had done the work or make sure that I knew what I was doing or hold my hand. It was just, you're a grown-up and you have a grown-up job and now you do it, and I expect that you know how. So I think the lack of a transitional period or oversight was the most surprising thing for me. I kept looking. I remember my first day of rehearsal, and I was in a two-person show, and the other person was a veteran actor, so she was more than comfortable with what she was doing. And I remember the first day, I kept looking at the director thinking she was gonna check on me or say something, and she didn't. And it was okay, and I did know what I was doing. I was very well prepared, but I thought that there would be another moment of, okay, now we kind of slowly move into the next section of your life, but it's not. It just started.
I think, and excuse my voice, I'm glad I have the microphone here. I think what was most surprising for me was, going into a grad program directly after UNCSA, I felt like the school was a little bit of a nurturing little bubble for me, and going right into a grad program, I felt like it was not the same nurturing bubble that I received here. So I definitely wanted to lean on my pickle family and lean on people I knew in the music world around me more than I was expecting to. You get to your senior year and you're like, I've got this. And it was humbling to be able to have to lean on my family here. So.
I did summer stock right after this, so I worked in the costume shop as a first hand, even though I graduated as a costume designer. And for me, working in the shop in basically every single aspect of being a draper or first hand, or even a stitcher, it prepared me to just take on this position and not feel unsteady in my sewing skills. And then moving into the Juilliard apprenticeship, it was honestly really easy because I just come from a very structured school setting, but I was working professionally in another school setting, so it just gave me a good foundation leaving here to do that.
So, sort of along the lines of our first experiences and maybe some surprises when we graduated, I think there's this expectation, which is totally fair, that we go to this amazing school and we're going to leave and we're just going to create art all the time for the rest of our lives. Which, I think we've all had our stretches where that has been true, and then also there are times where maybe not so much. So I'm curious, what is navigating that specifically been like? Because this is a conservatory style where we're just in it, and you leave and maybe in it for a minute, and you may not be in it for a minute.
I think for me, when I graduated and kind of slowed down, I didn't touch a paintbrush. I didn't do anything creative aside from assisting, but to me that's a different mindset. And so I just turned it off and ignored it because I didn't have the energy to do it anymore because I was just go the entire time I was here.
I think, after I came out of school, I then went into a show that was almost the next year, so I was still pretty go immediately after school, so it was then jarring when I closed that play to have the next 6 months or so of figuring out a different job, a second stream of income, and it did take, and now at first, after a year of doing a play, I was like, oh, I can take a break, I'll just sit and relax, and that was great. And then after 3 days, you're like, okay, that's enough of a break and you want to keep going. And I think that for me was the beginning of, the true life of an artist, the true life of the vagabond artist, and just kind of figuring out what to do in the quiet moments or in the slower moments. And I think that was, for me, in navigating that these past 5 years, it's been an effort to figure out other things that can bring me joy, other things that can bring me some kind of enjoyment, whether it is the deep creative fulfillment of being an actor. That's not always attainable, and that's okay. And just trying to figure out a way to be at peace with that. Because a lot of this process of being an artist, for many of us, especially at the beginning, is an in and out, an up and down, an ebb and flow, and figuring out how to make the ebbs feel just as full as the flows.
Yeah, actually, I'll speak on that because now I'm an administrator, but as a musician, you spend all these hours in the practice room, and that becomes your identity. Your art form for any of us becomes your identity. So you get to a place, where I had to reconcile that I did want to pursue administration over performing, and having to, put aside something that had been my identity fully 100% for, 14, 15 years of my life. And, realizing that I wanted to find more joys in my life than just my flute, because my flute wasn't just my identity, I was more than just an instrument. So taking the time to find, like you said, taking the time to find the things that bring you joy outside of your art form?
So I think for me, the biggest thing, like after I graduated, and was trying to establish myself in my career, as we all have been for the past 5 years, I definitely struggled with trying to balance my creative side with like my main job as I try and like work my way up. Especially in the film industry, like, your opportunities will come like as you meet more people and as you like, put your best foot forward, and make those connections. But I really tried to like edit other projects on the side and give notes to my friends' projects. And that's how I tried to stay creative. And eventually, I just kept doing like one job right after the other, and sometimes there was overlap, only one day in between the next work, because like we're gig workers, we're filmmakers, you go from one job to the next. My last project, my last big studio project was with Marvel, and that was, it took a lot of energy, and I learned so much, but then I decided I needed to take a step back and reevaluate, and that was at the end of 2021. And so I decided to like look at the past then 4 years of my life, since graduating, and I decided, hey, I wanna go back to my roots and why I went to UNCSA, and I really took that big step into going back into trying to edit full time, write full time, let me try to direct, and and what came out of it was this project with Dolby, and that's because I took a chance on myself and tried to get back to my creative roots. And I'm really glad I decided to make that decision and to try and actually power through the creativity. I guess that's that's what you teach here.
Cool. So Jordan, you mentioned figuring out a second stream of income after show close. I'm curious, what are some of the side hustles that you guys have engaged in, and not just what have you done, but what have they taught you? What practical skills, if any, have you learned, and if you didn't, I think that's also important here as well, because I know, for example, Jordan and I were talking to some drama students yesterday and just letting them know that there is a choice in what you choose. And so I'm curious what your learning experience has been through those secondary streams of income.
Cool. So I currently work at a luxury fitness gym in New York City. It was the first job I got in New York the week I moved in January, so they kind of took a chance on me. And I started at front desk. I think the discipline that they saw in me came from being a dancer, just discipline and conservatory structure. So I was promoted right after that to what we would consider concierge roles, so doing a lot of admin work. And then another person above me left, and now they actually created a role for me that's called fitness concierge manager. And I think the things I've learned are I haven't lost the human in me. There's so many other things about me besides dance that are amazing, right? Right? And I think sometimes as artists we tend to lose those things, or maybe that isn't important, but it really, really, really truly is in all ways. Yeah.
My job right now, my second income job right now is as a nanny, and that's been kind of the most consistent job that I've kept in between acting jobs, because it's a job that's easy to come back to, or you can find a new family, find a new position. But before I really did that consistently, I've tried a lot of different side jobs, side hustles. I've waitressed, I've hostessed, I've delivered pizza, I worked at a deli, I interned at a casting agency, all fun or not fun in their different ways. And I think, as we talked a little bit about yesterday with some of the drama students, I think the thing that I learned over these past few years in doing those jobs is just try to find something. I think working actors and working artist, or the trope of the starving artist is so prevalent, and I think the feeling that that gives us is that if you're not doing the thing that is your main passion, you have to be doing this thing. You're usually doing this thing that makes you miserable, or this thing that you should be ashamed or not happy to tell somebody about. And I think that makes it that much harder to keep yourself going and keep yourself motivated to get back into the thing that fulfills your creative endeavors. And so, for me, I love kids. I've always loved kids. I'm the oldest of 4, so I was always around babies, and I spent time with little, and I'm a nanny for infants, so little 3-month-old babies, and a night nurse. So it's also just things that I was a nanny when I was here, but I was not a night nurse, which is just, as I'm sure many of you will know, you stay up with the baby all night while the parents can sleep, so that's lovely for them. Lovely for them, not so lovely for me, but that's okay. But that's a skill that I kind of developed and went deeper into as I've been working on and off these past few years, and I think, for me, I get to sit with a baby that smiles and laughs and thinks I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. And that's a nice feeling to have when, no, I'm not on a stage getting to tell a story the way I want to be, or I'm not in front of a camera today playing some fabulous character. But I made a little boy smile. I helped a family get through the day. I helped a family get through the week, and that can be enough for this week. And we'll tackle next week as we get there.
When I first moved to Chicago, I started at the grad program at Northwestern. I knew I needed to get a job. And what do you do when you need to get a job? You're kind of desperate. You go to Google and you start typing in, jobs near me. And I was scrolling, trying to find things that could fit into my rehearsal schedule and practice schedule. Lo and behold, I started working at a luxury car wash. Remind me to show you pictures of the uniform. It was very humbling. Blue collar shirt and khakis and the belt. Anyway, but I quickly realized that I really didn't want to keep this job for very long. So what it taught me was I quickly had to evaluate what skills I knew I had that I could do well. And I knew I had some graphic design experience. I knew I had really organizational skills. And I threw my resume together to make it look as good as possible. And I realized I was more tech savvy than I thought I was. So I think, in a pinch, we realized that we had more skills than we think we do. And from there, that's when I was able to keep my job at Colvin House, which wasn't an amazing experience, but we have more inside than we think we do. I think that's what I got from that.
Nice. I think that something that's coming up is the reality of what it means to be a working artist is, maybe different than what our expectations were. And I also think that there's sort of a shift happening in our industries where there's more opportunity to create opportunities for oneself. And that's kind of reframed what it means to be a working artist. It's no longer you wait around for somebody to give you a job. So I'm curious, for those who have maybe created their own work or who have collaborated with others who have created their own work, what has that experience been like? Big or small?
Great. So the current choreographer that I work with is Julie Lane, and I'll tell you how that happened, because it was a big surprise to me. So there were a few alum that were already working with him or assisting him for some other projects, and I had said to Tariq, I said, I want to work with him. How do I do it? I need to know. And one of my great friends, Devin, said to me, close mouths don't get fed. I said, oh, that was a hitter. So I DM'd him on Instagram. I said, Jewel, I don't know what you're working on soon, but I want to work with you. I've been watching everything you do since you taught us here. Are there any opportunities or chances I can get? He messaged me 2 days later and said, hey, I'm going to be working at Boston Conservatory. Are you going to be around? Can you help me? And that was it. I've been stuck to it ever since. So I would say open your mouths and don't be afraid to ever.
Good lesson.
Awesome. Can you repeat the question? One word.
Yes. Caitlin. So, no. The question was just around creating one's own work. I think you were mentioning yesterday about content creation, which I think you may have a little more insight into. So also maybe if you wanted to speak about that a little bit, but just generating original work.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for the refresher. Okay, so I guess like from creating original work, I think I really started to dive into that like during the pandemic. We're all like reflecting on our lives and the meaning of, what is the human experience. I started to get back into like writing a little bit and like, watching other people's content. Like, I really wanted to like understand filmmaking more, and what is storytelling. And while, like they teach us this in school, I also wanted to continue my own education personally, privately, not necessarily having to go into a classroom to do that. I would analyze a few different works here and there, and what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, and something that like I really wanted to do was write, and no one was going to give me that opportunity, I realized, and so I had to make that opportunity for myself. And I passed it around to some people when I came up with a script, and they gave me some notes on it. And like I would continue working on that. And then getting further into collaboration, I just think like in working in this industry and all these really amazing opportunities that I've had along the way, and working with these really fantastic filmmakers, I really got this like very interesting perspective on storytelling. It was what I hoped, for myself. Like I really wanted to learn as much of each job as I could. So whether that was like, I want to work in television. Okay, let's try and make that happen. I want to work on a commercial. And so I, was able to get that opportunity, and, working on a studio project, working on an indie project, and trying to just get that robust view, and, culminating into this part of now working with Dolby. I took all of those experiences, working in VFX, working in sound, and putting all of that knowledge into my work, and like living and breathing it, and then bringing in other UNCSA people, because I wanted to show them that like, hey, I know what we learned here, let's work on this together, let's bring the film school together, and like utilize our skills that we learned here, and really truly collaborate in a storytelling sense. And this was my first time, I came from a heavy post-production background, and so I've been able to look at storytelling from like the reverse direction, because post-production is like the last stop before you like see it in a movie theater. And essentially, like it's been a huge learning process for me, in learning from my collaborators at UNCSA about like what their jobs are, and also like taking a step back from a role in post-production that normally I have more control of, and like letting the reins go. And so it's just been a really beautiful process to be able to collaborate with people from UNCSA, and even through content creation. I work with Tariq actually, and creating some content for him, and really learning about like online social media presence, and helping with political ads. It's something I learned that I want to do during the pandemic. It's just like also being more politically active, and that's something that I can help raise awareness and raise my voice and collaborate with others in a way that like normally I can't, I guess.
No, love it, love it. So in what ways, because we have some influential folks here in the audience, in what ways can UNCSA better support students in creating their own work? Whether that be, if you have suggestions for curriculum and or ways in which that alum can be assisted in generating their own work, because it's the reality of our industry. You kind of, I'm not saying you have to, because obviously any avenue will do, but it's a big part of it now.
think there are always things that we can be doing to improve, but I think one of the things that I would say is just, I think as a university or as an institution, we can strive to expand our perspective a little bit. I think sometimes when I was here, we are very focused on our art and very focused on our training, as we should be, but as artists, our job is to reflect the world and talk about what's happening, and I think sometimes in our pursuit of that excellence and pursuit of that focus that we want to have, it sometimes felt a little insular. Insofar as we're in a city where there's so much going on and so much, the art district downtown was developing so quickly when we were here, and there were so many things that were new and popping up. And I think to strive to kind of be a part of that and have a little more interaction with what's going on around us as a university and as different arts institutions, I think that can be incorporated and used to broaden the message that we're sending out.
Two things. First thing is, alumni engagement, I think. That's something that I think, am missing from UNCSA. We're really engaged here as students, and there's so many activities and so many things going on, and it really makes you feel involved. And I think when you graduate and you're spread out across the U.S. or spread out across the world, sometimes you can feel isolated, especially like as an artist who just live very different lifestyles than a lot of people. And I'd love to see like more, I guess, community engagement local to the pockets. So like in Chicago or New York, Los Angeles, and whether that is, with the alumni themselves or we have guidance from an administrator here. I think, even creating that position to help get the alumni more involved, and also I think that would help with them giving back to the school, whether it's through initiations or like residency programs like we were talking about last night. I think that would be like really fantastic to see more alumni engagement and feeling that UNCSA community. And the second thing is more so for the film school. I think from my time at UNCSA, I learned so much, and I just felt like when I came into the film industry after I graduated, like I felt prepared, and I felt like the school knew what they were doing, and the teachers knew what they were doing, and but as I've progressed in the past 5 years, it kind of hit me in the face, especially working with Dolby, how integral each department is in each job and each role. And while we're all making films together at the school and we each have our own departments, I think understanding how one person's job has a massive effect on everything else. So when you're coming up with the idea and the concept, when you're writing it, how you write it, what are we who are we casting? Did the writer put in that this is a Black woman, or did they specify she is Trinidadian? And so what are those specific moments? And then how do we pull that through casting? Okay, how are we showing that through costumes? And then when we get to set, what about the lighting? Okay, if we don't light our Black lead properly, it's going to happen in post. And then what's going to happen in post? You're not going to see her face. And so there's all these things that's so interconnected, and I'm saying what I think UNCSA School of Filmmaking can do better is really show how rigorous and how important every single person's job is, and also trying to fold in the importance of people of color and their stories, because I just have realized something we talked about last night was, we are trying to tell so many stories from all walks of life, and we have a really great opportunity here at the school across all schools to tell stories, whether point is that I feel for filmmaking, we really need to dig into the importance of every single job and how it has an effect on the story when we're telling the audience at the very final moment on screen.
Boom. I believe we have an audience question.
Yes, I have, I'm Tadeo Coelho, I'm the flute professor here, and I worked with Sarah for some years, very fortunate. First I want to congratulate all of you. You all are amazing, and you are all amazing leaders. And I think that that's part of our, let's just say, hidden agenda, that we want all of our students to actually be leaders. And I see the leadership in each one of you, and I kudos to you, and I think also to us here at the SSA, and thank of the Alumni Association and Provost Office that kind of brought you people here. That is just fantastic. My question was related to the previous question. After leaving here, in hindsight, do you see that hidden agenda of trying to get the leaders out of you, was that apparent now? Is that apparent now? And then was that apparent then? And what can we do better in order that it will be easier, recognizable now at this stage of your life that says, oh yes, that was given, or perhaps not. That was not given, and I just had to learn myself. Is there something in hindsight that you can speak about? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great question. That's a great question. From my being right here.
Think about it.
Man, I mean, personally, and I was somebody who, as everybody knows, was very involved with student leadership. I feel like I had to seek that out. I think UNCSA is an amazing institution because the resources are here, and you can take advantage of what you'd like to take advantage of while you're here. Is it necessarily something that we're being ushered towards? I don't think that was my experience. And I think that something that's also very important, which goes back to Caitlin's point about alumni engagement, is the more students, I imagine, see examples of leadership, then they believe, oh, that's possible, that can be me, right? And I think the elephant in the room is where the students. This is an opportunity for them to engage with us, for them to see this is what's possible. And I think we need more help from the art schools, right? Because the provost office, deserves a round of applause. The fact that they've organized this is the second year.
Yeah.
It's amazing. We didn't have this while we were here, and so I think the school really has to, everybody's got to work together, right? The art schools should have been pushing everybody here. I know they don't have class. So it's an internship. They told us that. That's what I have to say about that. I think that there can be more helping students to get in front of alums so they can see what's possible. Yeah.
I would agree. I don't necessarily think that it is. I think when I was here, the feeling was that the focus was specifically on training. That was kind of the main thing that we were speaking about with our faculty, that we were speaking about, outside of life, but speaking about with each other in terms of professional or educational ideals. I don't know that leadership or our input in terms of organization of what was going on, scheduling events like this, was necessarily something that I felt like was looked for, and I do think that it could be. I think that being a leader is definitely helpful as you get out in the world and as you get out as artists, and as Gabby was saying, closed mouths don't get fed. I think the ability to advocate for yourself is one that should be developed, and this is a place where it can be developed. We're learning how to sing and speak and create. Why not stand up for yourself and talk about the things that you need and talk about the things that you are missing and that you're not seeing? Because, I can absolutely tell you, as I sit up here today, things that I remember from 5 years ago that I felt I did not have. But the people who are in those chairs right now should be the ones that are saying, hey, this is a thing that I see today, this is a thing that I saw yesterday, that I needed and I didn't have. And I don't know that I was really doing that in my first few years at UNCSA, and now in my senior year, I was part of the leadership for our class in the drama school, but that really came out of necessity. That came out of the need for, as we were moving towards showcase, the desire for my input and my say to be a part of what happened. I am a person, you know, I thank you for saying we're leaders. I am a leader, but I'm also a little bit of a control freak, and I like to know what's going on. I like to know how things, yes, a leader's a great word for it, but another word for it is. And I like to know what's happening. So, you know, when we were, for me, as a senior in college, as we were getting ready for Showcase, I wanted to know what was happening. I wanted to have a say in what was happening and in how it was organized and how it was brought together. And so that meant that I needed to be a part of the leadership. But prior to that, there wasn't a call for it. One wasn't, you know, in the drama school in the fourth year, there is the space for student leaders to be a part of that. But prior to that, there was no space for that. There was no question of what are you guys thinking, what are you guys needing, how would you deal with this, how would you feel if we did it this way. There wasn't an opening for that. So I think if that is something that we want to strive for and that's something that we want to cultivate, we have to make the space for it.
I think specifically for the costume shop and DMP is that they taught us how to be adaptable to everything there. So every single position in the shop you could go and do and be okay. In terms of leadership, like the only thing that I can think of is like when I got to costume design in my third and fourth year. But even then there were so many collaborative moments that it wasn't like I was the front person to just make all the decisions. It was a group decision every single time. And always like referring to your director and everything like that. So I was never like really a point of leader, like a leadership role. It just felt for me more like being a liaison to the shop, to what I needed for the project to succeed.
Specifically for the dance department, or maybe campus in general, I wonder what does autonomy and agency look like here at UNCSA? I've had the privilege to do some restaging at University of the Arts, and something about that curriculum I'm just like very curious about, because the dancers that come out of there have an understanding of artists. Like, this is my voice, and this is where I want to be, and this is what I want to say. And I can definitely say, coming out of UNCSA, I did not feel as though that's exactly what I was as a leader. But it is what I wanted to be, and I did have some of those qualities. And I think maybe it's in the communication from teacher to student, and maybe switching that agenda and it being more so person to person. Specifically for dancers, I think we just need to be more mindful of that. Yeah.
There was a teacher, John Roberts, at an faculty a few years ago, and he was there my junior and senior year. Something that he said that I'll never forget is learning how to manage the room. You are in charge of the editing room. That is your space. That is where you work. And when people come in there, whether it's the director, the producer, if it's like, you know, friends of the actor and they want to come in and see things, that is your domain. And if you let it run amok, if you let people step on you, then you start to lose the harmony that you've created in your process. And that's when I actually started to think about, you know, filmmaking a little differently and starting to basically understand what he was saying was egos and understanding people and how to, you know, work with each other. And, you know, you might need to tell somebody like, hey, if you're getting frustrated, I need you to step out and take a breath. And like, I didn't, like, it's very humanizing, you know, getting told that by a faculty member, and then having to like apply that as you like go out into the world. I think that kind of pushed me to be more in like a leadership role, but also, you know, you're asking like, where can artists and our art reflects society, and we need to understand like that human connection. We need to understand, you know, what does a socioeconomic background mean? You know, what does it mean to live in this part of the world? And how many different languages are spoken? And our world is very interconnected, and I think being a leader is being able to identify that everyone walks through their life differently, and how do you incorporate that into your work and into your art?
Along the, oh, just kidding. It's all you. It's all you. Come on.
Hi, I wanted to ask what all of your experiences have been with getting jobs and having moved from city to city, and how constantly, you know, moving from time to time has affected your side hustles and your relationships with like your friends and family, and how you balance all of that.
Good question. I've actually had to move around quite a bit, especially at the beginning of my career out of school. And I think, in terms of how it affects your friends and family and those kinds of relationships, you know, we are artists. My friends and family know that I'm an actor, and my friends and family know that I love them very much. And I will call them when I have that moment. And I think, you know, it's a matter of when I am home, when I am here, and I am going to show up for all the things that you need me to show up for. I'm going to support you in all the ways that I can, go above and beyond the ways that I can. Because when I'm not, I want to have, you know, for lack of a better word, have built up the capital when I was here, so that it's okay that I have to be away for 6 months, or it's okay I have to be away for, you know, however long. And I was having a conversation with a friend recently, kind of on this topic of as you come into adulthood and as we get older, how do you maintain friendships, and what does it mean to have an adult friendship? And I think for me, what it's really come down to is everybody's got busy lives. Everybody has things going on, and if you are reasonable people, everybody understands that. And for me, it is less when I'm thinking about my friendships or my family members. I am less concerned with if you've texted me every day, if you call me every day, and more concerned with just holding the space for me in your brain, in your heart, in your life. That when I need you, you are there. That I was thought of. That I am a factor for you. And I think that's kind of how I try to operate with my relationships. And then in terms of side jobs, that can be difficult. And, you know, I think we strive to find, as I said a little bit earlier, you strive to find a side job that you love or that brings you some kind of joy or happiness. I think that it also means I have had to say to people, look, I have to go. I have to go for 3 months. I'm really sorry. I've loved being here, and I try very hard to be as open with people at the beginning as I can be. When I am applying for a job, when I'm looking for a job, I will say to someone, I am a very reliable employee. I will be here when you need me. I also want you to know I'm an actor. So that means that in 6 months from now, in 2 weeks from now, tomorrow, unfortunately, which would be a really bad thing to happen the day after I've gotten hired, but has happened. You know, I've gotten a job. I got a nannying job one time, and I said, oh, it's here and there. You know, I might get hired. I might have to go somewhere. And the next day, I got a job. And I was like, it actually came to fruition much sooner than I thought. But I think it's being open with people. It's being honest. It's not about, I've had friends who try to hide it or try to lie and say this is their first priority. My side hustle is not my first priority. It's a priority for as long as it can be, but my priority is my career as an actor. And I think if you lead with that and you're honest with that, Hassiam was talking about, you know, people think it's cool. People think artists are wonderful. People like art. So if they are interacting with you and they are good people, generally they will allow you the space if you're honest with them. Now, if you lie to them, if you keep it a secret, if you try and get around, then it gets a little more difficult. But I think if you're open with what's happening, yes, things get affected and it is difficult. But I have, my first job I moved 4 times within a year to do a play, which is stressful. But it's also, you have to look at it as getting to see new places, getting to meet new people, getting to expand your world. And that's my bread and butter as an actor. I want to know more things. I want to see more people so that I can play more people. I can truthfully talk about art and tell a story the way that I want to with my full capacity. So I think it's being open and honest with what you're doing and what you're wanting and what your goals are, and holding space for the people that you care about so that whether you are there physically or not, they know that they matter to you. And I think that's really what people want in the end.
I think Jordan made some amazing points. I think anything we've learned from the past 3 years is that at any given point in time, we're all doing the best we can, right? And I think with your friendships, with your family, we're all doing the best we can. So I think if your family, for your friendships and your family, for you, can just show a little empathy and a little compassion at any given time, I think that's the best way to look at those. And like you said, holding space for the people, and if they can hold space for you, that's what I have to say.
So this is super quick. But I've been dealing with this with my family for like a very long time. They're not in, the film industry. My parents are, in tech and in insurance and finance, and so and I don't know what your parents are, but just in general, like if you don't have artist parents, they're going to struggle to understand. Sometimes that's okay. And I learned that they're gonna sometimes ask the same questions, and like a lot. And you're like, but I told you this like literally a month ago, or we talked about this last year. Like, don't you remember? And it's like my parents like, I'm sorry, like I'm still learning, and like, but it's going to be like that forever. And you have to be patient with them. And I'm learning that like I have to be okay with explaining what does a DI mean? Like, yes, it's color. Like, what is coloring again? I'm like, okay, take a deep breath. Like, yeah, and it's okay. But it's great what you guys are saying, like, hold that space in your heart for them and vice versa. But there's gonna be those moments when you struggle to understand each other, and you just, it's about, trying to put yourself in their shoes, because they want to understand you.
Yeah, I'll add that I think when it comes to relationships, I like to try, and something I'm working on is having a mindset. I think it's like the mindset and orienting yourself in a way that you are always seeking to give first to the people who are around you, right? If you're someone who's additive to someone else's life, if you're a great collaborator in a room, that's going to help foster rich relationships. And then, I know as actors, we travel quite a bit. I've been all over the country since I graduated. And it's like, you want to be the person that when you're out of town, like, people miss you, and I'm not saying that to be like, first like, oh, I'm so great, but I think what I mean is, if you're additive to the people around you, when you leave, like, they're going to reach out to you. They're like, oh, I miss you, or, hey, congratulations on this, X, Y, or Z. I have this one friend, he is so much better at it than I am. He's like, anytime I'm doing something, he's the first one to comment. Anytime I post something, he works all the time. He works all the time. Like, he probably works twice as much as I do, right? He's always like the first one to congratulate. And yeah, it's just like something I know, like, man, like I'm trying to like become that person that's always adding to others. When it comes to like your job situation, I actually work with a consultancy for artists, and there's kind of 2 things that we like to believe and like to encourage our clients to do when it comes to the secondary streams of income. And one is to have control over it, right? So that it can be mobile, so that when you leave town, you're not necessarily completely cutting off that stream of income. Now, obviously, there's situations in which like you kind of have to, and that's fine. But if you can find something that like can come with you, that's invaluable because that means it doesn't stop. But when you get back, it hasn't stopped. And then the second thing is we also encourage, easier said than done, but what do we call it? We call it the in-between fund, right? So we are quite literally, I'll speak for actors, I think it applies to many of us though, we are in the business of losing our jobs. And what I mean by that is like, anytime I get a contract, it is a guarantee that the contract will end. Like I'm literally, I'm going to lose my job. I know that from the jump, right? So, like, the quicker you can come to grips with it, I mean, so much so that you can literally get on unemployment after, like, an active contract ends. That's a qualification for unemployment. You lost your job. And instead of, sorry, the reason I'm saying all this is because we believe that if you have an in-between fund, if you build up, Jordan kind of touched on, she didn't call it that, but if you build up a little nest egg to where when you get back from being out of town, to where you don't have to jump straight back into the rat race. And you can be like, you know what, I'll take a couple weeks. You know, I'm gonna float it, you know, and that also gives you some breathing room. Maybe you can focus on getting back to those auditions when you get back to town without having to go, okay, I just lost my job, and now I immediately need money again. Yeah, so if you can set yourself up to float it a little bit, I would, if you have the ability, I'd recommend that, yeah.
What's something that you wish you had done when you were a student here that would have served you after graduating?
Collaborating with artists in other schools. That's mine.
I think for me, it was always hard to make connections because I transferred in during everyone's sophomore year. So I didn't get a lot of DLA time because it was theater history and art history, which were mostly theater students and art students. So it was very, very tiny group of people for me. And I appreciate like getting the chance to do film during my third year, so that like introduced me to people, but they like, again, knew everyone else. So I think even leaving here and being in New York, like half the people up here are in New York and I didn't know. And like even with Jordan, I worked with her on a show, but like didn't know that she lives in New York. And I just think in general, I wish that I had had more opportunities as a transfer student, which I don't think is very much supported in terms of like integrating us into meeting different areas of schools. So, yeah.
I have something that I think, you know, in undergrad, even in high school, we're very future oriented. We're always looking at the next thing, the next project, the next deadline. But I feel like as I got towards my senior year, I thought I was already ready. I was already in grad school. I was like, on to the next thing. And I just feel like when I was here, I should, you know, really enjoy, especially your junior and senior year when you're the cream of the crop, you're at the top of your game. Really sit and enjoy those moments and enjoy the people, the artists you're surrounding yourself with. Because that's what you're going to come back to once you leave, is those memories, especially from the latter years that you make here.
I wish I had gotten out more. And, you know, I was lucky enough to like have a vehicle like my sophomore year through my senior year here. And it didn't, I mean, it just happened. I drove, you know what I did? And, you know, I wasn't supposed to do it, I'm outing myself right now. But like, you know, when I was running late for class at the film school, I just like drive my car over instead of walking across campus from center stage and then just parked it in the film lot. And then that's when I would use my car. And like, I'm saying this because I wish that, going back to like Jordan's point, like there was more engagement, and like, you know, there's great stuff on the campus, but like getting out, like I literally only use my car for groceries and the like come to school from center stage. So like, you know, there's the baseball games and that's great, and then there's like the Stevens Center stuff and that's incredible too. But you know, and then there's the bus to the mall. And that's nice. But like, there's so much more that, you know, like the surrounding area has to offer. And even if it's just like, hey, let's go out to Greensboro, or like let's have a Waffle House night or something to like get us out there and really just like engaging with each other. And even if it's like on a bus, like totally cool with that. Because honestly, I'm talking like levels of what is that at the end of the year when there's that Bozarts? Yes. Like we don't have to have Bozarts types of events like once a year. Like, you know, people want to like engage and have fun, and I think we forget we're in that in-between stage of like coming out of high school, trying to like figure ourselves out, and then also still trying to figure out like how are we as humans and how do we want to experience having fun in our lives, and just kind of like living life, I guess. Yeah.
I think you should have hung out with me.
I know, I'm so
I was like,
sad.
One thing I would like to touch on is how we're talking about this topic of interdisciplinary work. And that being said, I also wish that I would have just grabbed Hasiem and said, can you teach me some character work? I didn't realize how accessible my friends were here in this moment. And now you live all the way up in Inwood. I'm still in New York, but I live in Brooklyn, right?
Oh, y'all will never see each other again.
That's it.
That's it.
So yeah, just realizing the resources you have right at your fingertips. That's what I wish I would have thought about.
Yeah, I was kicking myself. Last night, Caitlin and I we were like popping up in the courtyard. It was like almost 11 o'clock at night, and I was just like, how have we never collaborated before? I'm like literally kicking myself. I'm like trying to learn about film producing, and I kind of just threw myself in the fire with my web series. You know, I told Caitlin, I was like, I'd love to pick your brain sometime, and I know that, you know, she's creating her own work. And I'm like, we used to be across the sidewalk from each other, and now we're on opposite coasts of the country. So yes, I feel that, Gabby.
Yeah, I feel like we all kind of feel very similar ways. We've all said different versions of a very similar thing. And I think I'm a person who, when I got here freshman year, you know, once I made my friends, I was like, great, I have friends, I'm done. That was it. And I never really felt the need to like look around again and see who was, unless somebody popped up and was right there, or was a new friend of Hasiem, or was a new friend that I then met, you know. I was good. I had friends. I had fun doing what I was doing with my friends, and that was it. But there is so much else going on campus, off campus, online, and now everywhere that I think that we could have access, that you guys can access. And I think that sometimes, you know, this school is hard. The training is hard. I was tired all the time, and I think that sometimes, you know, my mother says to me a lot, she'll call me and I'll say, I'm tired. And she's like, you're young, what do you mean you're tired? When I was young, I was out all day doing all kinds of things. Tired is not an excuse to not live your life. You'll have lots of time to be tired. And I remember getting out of classes or getting out of rehearsals and just being like, I'm done. I'm not doing anything else. If there was a show at the dance school, or if there was, it felt like too much to ask of myself to do even more, because then I wouldn't be able to commit all of myself the next day to my work. And I think that we have greater capacity than we allow ourselves. And I think if you, like Sarah was saying, we spend a lot of time, you know, I remember in my first couple of years here, I spent so much time thinking about what shows I would get to do in the second half of my time here. And I missed so much of the great stuff I was doing in those moments because I was worried about what's happening in the future. There's this movie that I love. To make a long story short, the guy has the ability to go back in time. And at some point in his life, he realized he started just going back to the beginning of the day and living it again. And except that time, really just taking the time to live in those moments and see how great that day had been. And then he got to the point where he could do that the first time. And so I really strive to do that the first time. I don't get a second time to go back and relive this day. I don't get a second time to go back and relive this week or these 4 years at UNCSA. Mine are done, that's it. So take the time, get up in the morning, whatever your class is, whatever your rehearsal is, whatever party you have to go to, live in that moment. Be excited about what you're doing that day. You're gonna get to the main stage show in 3 years. You're gonna get to the concert in a month. It's gonna happen. Enjoy that moment when you get there. But at this moment, try to find all the things you can do today and do them, because you have nothing but time. You're always going to be tired, you're always going to be bogged down, there's always going to be a lot of work, but you can be tired and have fun at the same time.
And I would encourage all students to, sort of what I said earlier, like this school is so beautiful. There's so many resources and things that, like Gabby said, if you just open your mouth, like you'd be surprised. You know, I used to take class with the dancers as a drama student. I would go to their class before our classes started. So I would go, oh, what time did it start? 9 something? 10:20. Okay, so we didn't start like 11:30. So I would go to their class for an hour and 10 minutes, and I'd leave their class early, and I'd run across to school drama, start our acting classes. And I did that for years.
And see, and that's the stuff that I was like, Hassy, I'm gonna get to class, and I'd be like, you did what? Where this morning? But Hassiam came to class ready to go and had already had half a day before we had started. There was so much more that could be done.
Also, just, about talking Jordan again, like, you said live in the moment, and it made me think of something that my former science teacher, Wade Wilson, said. Our first day going out, our first day of class in my junior year, he took us on a field trip and, like, had us go to Pilot Mountain and walk through the mall. And he was just like, it's a listening exercise, and listen, and then write down what you hear. And I was like, okay. Like, everyone just had to, like, separate. And I didn't realize in that moment, but afterwards, when I got like a B on my Pilot Mountain listening exercise. Like, what? Like, I thought I heard birds. and then when I went through the mall, and then I, like, listened to the different sounds, and I was like, I got an A on that. And I was like, why did I not get an A on this other thing? And he, like, described what I missed. And through that moment, I realized, like, it's a form of meditation. Be present. Listen to your surroundings. How do you ground yourself? And like, just to say, like, with Jordan, like, living in the moment, like, what did we wish we knew about when we were, like, students? And, because of that teacher, I'm saying my positive experience, because of that teacher, I learned to look at life a little bit differently and to try and ground myself. And I can give this advice to you. It's, like, taste your food. And, like, I know, like, you're rushing to get to your next class, but, like, taste your food. Like, if you're sitting in the grass, like, or playing volleyball, like, feel the sand between your toes. It's, like, very small things in life. When your head hits the pillow, feel that feeling in your back. When it just, like,
Do that one.
I'm like, like, just, like, live in the moment. Yeah.
I love it. So we presented some challenges to the students, and I guess for myself, I'm about to go walk in some sand. I'm curious, what challenges do you all have for the school? What adjustments would you like to see the school make based on your experience? And maybe even based on, we've been out for a few years, but we're still relatively connected based on what you're seeing. Yeah, what challenges do you have for the school?
I think that one thing, I think there can be more, and I know that we've said this a couple of times, but I think that there can be more engagement with alums. I know for drama, when we graduated, there was a program, or the idea was that we each got a mentor from a past class. And I know, I can't say for all of my class, but I know some of my class are still in touch with their mentors, but largely, most of us are not. And I think that the idea was a good one. I don't know. I think it probably could have been executed differently. But, we're here. We, the alums, are here, and so many before and after us now. And I think, though, to have one person that that was in your shoes, went through the same process, that you can ask a question, and we can ask our teachers things, but there's things that sometimes I don't necessarily want to, I love Carl Forsman, but there were things that I was not going to ask Carl or Quinn or whoever about. But there were things that I could have asked Andrew Manning about because he was there. And there are things that I think students could call me and say, hey, this thing happened today, or this thing we're doing next week. Do you have any insight on this? And I would, because I was there 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever it is. So I think that if we could have programs that are a little bit more tailored to have kind of one-on-one interaction between current students and alumni, I think that would be helpful. And also not when you graduate, maybe when you get here. When you graduate as well, but I think there were things that I could have asked for advice. And it's also, I don't know as a first year if I felt like I could ask the fourth years. But if you told me this person from the class of whatever is waiting for your call, I might call.
I think for me, it's, again, costumes, but for DMP specifically, there's so much of what we do that's freelancing, very much like acting and dancing. It's like I had to learn how to advocate for myself and negotiate my own pay and figure out the best way to just navigate a job, because sometimes at the very start I didn't know I was being taken advantage of, whether it was like they promised me these things but then they're like, well, in the contract actually like this is what it actually meant. I was like, got it. So I really think the things that we are taught is there's usually one way, like you graduate, you do your hours, you get into the union, and that's just one path. And I personally did not want to join the union, so I was like, I have to find my way around that because that's not the path for me. And so, yeah, I think honestly just freelancing, just figure out how to say, this is what freelancing is like, this is how you can manage your time. Because they teach you time management, but not in the way of like having 5 jobs at the same time. So.
I think it's a bit of like a challenging thing for me to like say right now, but I'm really thinking about it. And honestly, I want to say, kind of based off of what Tiffany's saying, like self-worth and your value, and what are you willing to put yourself through to get to that next level, that next step. And I constantly had to question whether or not, like, should I like sleep or should I shower because I'm going to bed at 2 a.m. and waking up at 6 for the same job and not getting paid a living wage. And those are hard things for me to say right now, but I want to be as open to you guys as possible because those are things that are going to come up. I had to question whether or not I deserve like a minimum wage on a job, like on a studio job. Like I shouldn't have to question that. And I think the negotiations class was really helpful. But like that was an incredible class. But like you have these really powerful people that are like dictating your pay and dictating like the hours that you work and like how heavy is your workload. And I definitely would say like I wasn't ready for that when I graduated.
I think, these past 3 years, there's been kind of this, shakiness to the culture of performing and for producing, and I think my challenge to UNCSA is, we have an opportunity here to change things and to change the culture once students leave here. I know the orchestral world can be pretty toxic. I know that, the acting world can be pretty toxic. And I think we have an opportunity here to shape the artists here to go out into the world and to create a different, different culture, a different world. So I think whatever that might look like here over the next 5 to 10 years, considering the shift that's happened in the past 3 years and the past 5 years since we left, I think finding a way to take that and make some change once the students leave here.
Go on, say that.
You managed to bring it up right before I asked it, kind of.
Sorry, could you clarify for me the difference between feeling self-worth and the difference between the size of the community? Could you just clarify?
Yeah, I think that we, this school is very like insular.
Mhm.
I don't know if I can say speak today, but it feels very small in that like it's very structured. You're doing the same things every day. Like your work is determined very much by what you're producing and the rooms that you're allowed into, and then what you're allowed to do in those rooms. And it feels sometimes like there's no opportunity to create a space for yourself or dictate your own self-worth within that. And I don't know if that helps clarify.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. Thank you.
I can't speak to the dance world because I'm not a dancer. I will say that I think we have a lot of similar struggles as actors, and certainly in the school of drama. When I was in the school of drama, I think that it really comes down to, at the end of the day, you having to determine your self-worth, and it can't be about. I hear you, and I know that it is and does feel like it is about what you produced and how hard you're working and how much I saw you show up last week versus how much I saw so-and-so show up last week. But that's really not, that has nothing to do with your self-worth. That has to do with, I don't know, if you had the flu last week and so-and-so didn't. You had to stay home and take care of yourself, they didn't, but that doesn't mean that they're worth more. I felt and feel now, I know what my talents are. I know how strong I am and how strong I am as an artist. And I had to get to a place where that was enough. Because yes, the school is small, the school is insular. The acting world seems large, but is small and is insular. And I can't imagine that the dance world is much bigger and less. We are artists in the world. We all travel in the same circles. It all comes back around. And so, especially at the beginning of your career, more than likely, unless you get out and get the biggest job and you were at the top of the call sheet out of the gate, which even then I think it still applies. But at the beginning of your career, yes, the world is a little bigger, yes, it is a little less insular and you can see what's happening with other people, but you are still a small cog in the wheel when you come out. You are still going to be worked more hours than you probably should be, and you are still going to be the low man on the totem pole. So whether or not somebody looks at you and sees all of the work you're putting in, whether you were at home practicing until 3 a.m. and still showed up and you showed up 5 minutes late the next morning because of whatever, you put in the work, you know how good you are. So my self-worth cannot be determined by other people, which is easier said than done. I know that. But it is kind of what we have to do as artists, because you're also gonna bounce around to so many houses and theaters and things that are different. Small theaters, big theaters, insular theaters, not so insular theaters. And I have to know when I show up at every place that I am good. I know my gifts, I know that I can do this job. So if you're having a bad day and you don't think that I did it, I know that I did. And I know that whatever is happening is not because I couldn't do it, but because we're missing something. So instead of feeling like I am less worthy, I know that there's something that we just miscommunicated or something that we are not understanding. So now I can actually get to the root of the issue and not worry about if I did something wrong or if there is something that I'm lacking. Because there's not, you're here, so you're fabulous. If you got to this place, you're fabulous, you have to be. And when you go out into the world, if you got the job, you are capable, and they knew you were capable when they hired you. So whatever they think of you on the random Tuesday during a rehearsal doesn't change the fact that you got into the room. So you have to know you belong in the room and figure out what else came into play outside of that.
I also think something kind of going back to what I said earlier about separating yourself from your art form. As long as you have to be able to find your own self-worth and who you are as a human being, and not to get a little gushy, but because you exist, you are enough. And it's not, whether you have a good dancing day or a bad dancing day, you existing is enough. And separating yourself from your dancing is something you need, that's vital for all of us as artists. I know I struggle with it too. And I lost my train of thought, so I'm gonna leave it at that.
For one, no one should ever make you feel like you aren't worth something. So I am sorry to hear that that's been your experience. It's very concerning. Secondly, I would say that I feel like there's a balance between like what's in your control and what's not in your control. And what's not, you kind of just gotta let it be. And then you have to do everything that's in your control, right? This industry is hard, right? What I appreciate about the school is that the school is hard, right? And it is in a lot of ways reflective of what it's going to be when you get out. It's going to be long days. You know, if you're on a film set, you do it for 12, 14 hours. You know, and that's how it is. You know, theater, we get a little better. You know, we're not doing 10 out of 12s anymore, but, you know, still, you know, long days, hard work. You know, and I think I had a teacher in high school who said something I've always hung on to, which is any spoke will do. So like on a wheel of a bike, you have the hub, the center. Any spoke you choose will get you to the center. So also some of it is like finding your own pathway forward that may not be clearly set out for you. You may have to discover it. You know, I think about Palapolis Dance Theater, literally invented by non-dancers in one of the premier contemporary dance companies today, right? They created Shadowland. Like, so inventive and like, you know, some dance companies got to scoff at them and they're like, you guys are da-da-da-da-da. Well, guess what? They're doing shows in Vegas and they were in Saudi Arabia a couple weeks ago. You know, so they are killing the game and were literally invented by non-dancers, right? So I think that if you embrace who you are as a person, you can always find your way to that hub. You know, you just gotta, you might have to do your own thing. So yeah, just embrace who you are.
May I have your name? Is that okay?
Yeah, Margaret.
Hi, Margaret. One, we'll chat afterwards, okay? And then two, thank you for asking that question in front of these people. I thought that was very brave. One thing I do want to touch on is the practice of affirmations. That's something I do for myself. Outside of here, once you graduate, it will be harder because you don't have that support system. You don't have those people you can call on all the time. You don't have the studio spaces to just go and create. You don't have that. But I do want you to know that the affirmation practice will get you in the habit of knowing that what I am doing right now is enough. What I have started to culminate within myself is enough. Who I am and who I want to be is enough. And just really keep those thoughts with you while you're here as well. All right?
Hi, I wanted to ask, so after graduation, I was talking to a friend recently and she described it as, you know, we're like clay and you always want to stay like, you always want to keep the clay wet so it doesn't dry. You don't want to just put yourself in the furnace and then like okay, I'm done. That way we're always growing. And so I would just ask, like after graduation, when you're, working and no longer in class, all day, how do you stay moldable and how do you keep growing as an artist?
Very good question. I think there's millions of different ways. I think everybody has to find the ones that work for them. I think, as an actor for me, that has meant going to the movies, watching TV, watching the places that I want to be, and watching the people that I admire and kind of trying to, when I'm auditioning, I saw a movie that I loved last night, and they did that thing that was really cool. Okay, I'm gonna sit here all day and try and figure out how she did that thing. And it can be as simple as that. I said to somebody recently, I had the day off and I watched a whole show. I don't remember what show it was, and I came out of the day and I was like, wow, I really feel like I learned a lot because they were really doing some really cool, they were using some really cool skills. So I think it's that. I think it's getting out and seeing art, seeing theater, or seeing dance, or seeing new films, or going to a museum, just surrounding, whether it's your art or a different kind of art form. I think just surrounding yourself with new ideas. Honestly, sometimes better to get away from your art, because sometimes I need a break. I think also that's, for me, growth sometimes means stepping away. And learning, I'm teaching myself Italian right now. That's another way that I'll grow in a completely different direction than if I saw a play last night. I think learn something new, step outside of your comfort zone, and just learn anything. And I think that is the way to keep expanding yourself, or that is a way to keep expanding yourself.
I think staying informed in the things that are going on in the world is also a direct influence on your art and who you are as a person. And it's things that you can pull to for inspiration. Because if you just take 5 minutes and scroll through the things that are happening right now, and think about how that makes you feel and how that influences who you are as a person. That's the kind of things that you can, if you have thoughts and ideas and feelings, those feelings you can pull into your art. And that's stuff that's changing every day. The world's changing every day, so it's good to keep up with those kind of things.
I think when I graduated, man, I thought I was the shit. I'm gonna be just to be honest. And I think on a certain level, for our peer group, we certainly were. This is an amazing institution, we know that. The training is amazing. You leave here and you are at the top of your peer group for sure. And still, there's so much to learn. And at the time, people talk about we should take acting classes. I was like, listen, I just took a lot of acting classes. But now I'm excited by learning. I'm excited to learn more. Jordan and I were talking, we were watching Carl Forsman's acting class yesterday, and we were itching to get up. And we were like, I was like, if he just let me do those first 2 lines, I know I can make some choices around that, And I think with each job I do, I specifically enter into it trying to take one thing out with me. Always trying to learn one thing. And sometimes it's not even about the craft. Sometimes it's just about the business or the industry. I remember when I was on, FBI, I learned series regulars run the set. That's something I didn't know. And all of a sudden I was watching the dynamic between the director and the actors based on how they were billed. It was very informative, and I was like, I didn't learn this in school. I said, good to know. So yeah, just always having a beginner's mind and always trying to learn more.
I actually have asked myself, what do I want to learn, or where am I lacking, or where can I be better, and what don't I know? And I want to know as much as I can and push that back into my art. But just in general, the other day, I was doing making graphics for my film with Dolby, and I was using Illustrator, and I'm really great at Illustrator, but I hate Photoshop, and it's so complicated to me for some reason. And I was just but I need to try to do this thing in Photoshop. So let me learn, and let me use Google as a resource, use YouTube as a resource, and I'm gonna get going to, I don't think I've heard of Creative Capital, but I'm literally going through the forums, and self-teaching is a huge part of this process after you graduate. And that might be putting on your TV and watching a few TikToks of a dance move if you want to learn how to do the dances and stay up to speed. You mentioned staying up to date with news, Sarah, and I love listening to podcasts. NPR's NPR News Now, 5 minutes. I learned something new.
Today explained.
Yes. And getting into podcasts actually pushed me into wanting to hear what other artists had to say about the work, and let me hear about this screenwriter's perspective on VFX. And I want to hear a fiction podcast and what different types of storytelling are types of storytelling are there. But I think just constantly going in and wanting to make yourself feel more well-rounded, and putting that extra skill on your resume, but it doesn't always have to be work related. If you want to learn how to ride a mountain bike, and you want to rent it from
curious, what was the thing that, if you could choose a thing that you learned at UNCSA that you feel like you can credit to where you are today? Or what has helped you to become who you are today?
Yeah, it is. I think one of the things that I learned at I mean, I think that's a question that has many answers. But one of the things I learned is how important it is to advocate for myself, and that I can't rely on, while there are oftentimes many people who would advocate for me as well, people who care about me and love me, you can't rely on that. Because most of the time, especially once you get out into the professional world, you are the person who has your best interests in your career and your goals at the forefront. Everybody else, while you may be one of their priorities or one of the things that they're trying to focus on, they also have a million other things of their own that they're worried about. You are the person who has your goals at the forefront all the time. So you have to be ready to advocate for yourself, and if something is not, whether it's with malicious intent or not, if something is not going in the way that you need it to, if you're not going down the path you need to, I think at UNCSA I really learned that it is okay to stand up and say, actually, I need something to change. I need something to be different. And it's not disrespectful. It's not rude. As long as you are not disrespectful or rude. I think it's necessary. I think you have to know the path you want to be on, and if you see yourself straying from that path, or you feel yourself being pushed in a direction you don't want to go into, being able to stand up and say it is an important thing.
I'll say I wish my instructors were in the audience or my teachers here, because I came here to be a versatile dancer, and that's exactly what my training prepared me for. There is not one room or audition that I've walked in where they do not know a UNCSA dancer, and I'm very thankful for that. And there's only a handful of callbacks that I haven't made, and that's because of my height. So, thank you for saying.
I think for me, the best thing that came out of attending the film school was the editing and sound design program, and just, I was taught how to be observant. And, looking at life a little differently. We look at actors' faces all day. And I see Michael Miller over there. That's my editing professor, and also he's my mentor to this day. And we talk quite a lot throughout the year. And he's even looked at my work and, given notes on it. But Michael has taught me how to observe humans in a very different way. And it's really beautiful getting to sit in that chair and Jordan, I edited your face. For so long I sat in front of the computer for hours, and getting to see those minute reactions in your eyebrows and the flicker of your eyes, and it's really beautiful to see the human experience through your performance. And I just it's yeah, but I just think I learned how to appreciate life more coming to this school.
I think there are two big things that immediately came to mind. One is a funny little anecdote from the first day of orientation. So the parents had to go to kind of a little parent orientation too. My mom shared this story with me immediately after because she was so tickled by it. But the person they met with opened the entire session with, so your child is an artist, they've come to UNC School of the Arts, they're weird. And I think what I got from that was, we're all a little weird here because we're unique and we're artists, and to this day I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that I'm a little weird, and that's okay. And I take that with me everywhere, because I feel coming out of the school where there's 1,000 students, and I love that. I love that this community, and we're all a little weird. The second thing is, I think we've all touched on it a little bit, is the mentorship that we have. My teacher, Dr. Paya, is here, and I know I can call him at any time, and he would be there for me to guide me through everything that I'm going through in my professional career and in life. And I feel like you can't get that everywhere, that sense of empathy and compassion. And I'm so grateful to have that coming out of this school.
For me, I think it's just to be a really good listener and be a really great collaborator, and to never go into a room acting like the smartest person. Just because I've worked with a lot of designers and just other collaborators who are very set in their ways and they aren't willing to listen. And I feel like something that I've taken with me no matter what, it doesn't matter what position you're in, like I'm always willing to listen. And I think that's been one of the most important things, is always being able and willing to learn from anyone. So.
I didn't want to cut anyone short. Okay. Thank you very much. The question, I want to go back to the elephant in the room that you referred to. And I think it's a two-part question. If you reflect back on the days that you were here and you heard that there was going to be an alumni panel just like this, would you have come? And the other thing is that what do you think we can do that we would have more engagement from the students? Because this is a question that I have been asking, and I think the pandemic, we can always blame the pandemic, but it's real. Mental health is a real issue for everyone. And but I'm curious to find out, when you were here, if there was an alumni panel, would you have come? And what can we help our community here that could have more engagement?
I guess to the first part of your question, absolutely I would have. Now I know, listen, I know. I'm just being honest. I would have. I acknowledge I maybe was not the average individual. My first time on campus, I was getting rules in the handbook changed, so that was kind of my thing. Pretty much that. And then the second thing, I mean, my impulse is to say, like, make it mandatory.
Yeah.
That's really, I think you just, yeah. I mean, because a lot of students, I think the reality is if you're told you have time off, you're going to take time off.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about how rigorous it is. Sleep is at a premium, so I remember when I think I talked about this yesterday, when my senior year, I worked with David English, previous provost, and organizing a talk around diversity and inclusion. And he was like, how do we make this happen? And I said, you have to cancel class, you have to require everyone to be there, including faculty. I'm not talking about it. I know they have their in-service things they're doing important. I'm not talking about, but just saying, like, clear the way, which has been done. I know students are offering out, but then tell them, like, you gotta be here.
Yeah, I agree with Hasiem, because while Hasiem would have been here, I can tell you without any doubt that I would not. If you told me that I did not have class, the day was free, and there was an alumni panel at 10 o'clock in the morning, no, I can't make it, I'm asleep. I can't make it. And I would have talked to Hasiem later in the day, and he would have told me how he enjoyed it and all the things that would have happened, and I would have thought, yeah, I missed it, but I got a nap, which I won't get tomorrow or the next day because I have my classes and my rehearsals and everything else. And so I think it's great to give the space, but I think I would have said as well that I think requiring attendance is the only way to do it. And while that's not, I understand that that's not the energy you want them to come into this event with. You don't want them to feel like, oh, I have to go to this panel. I can't tell you the things that I had to go to, things that I was required to go to while I was at school. And then I got there and I was glad that I went. I might not have been happy that I had to go, but I came out of it glad that I went. And I think at the end of the day, if this auditorium had been full of students required to be here, they might not have been thrilled at the beginning, but they would have gotten something out of it. So I think we have to stray away from the feeling of, at this point, they're college students. If you give me time off, I'm gonna take my time off because I don't get that much time off as it is. So yes, it's annoying that you have required me to come to this stupid event, but it was actually a great event and I'm happy I went. I think that's okay. I think that we just have to be okay with that energy.
I think the other thing I'll say is students watch students. I think it starts from the top and it trickles down. So I think also taking the time to emphasize to the upperclassmen the importance of being here and the importance of, showcasing to the underclassmen and the high schoolers being present. The younger students are going to see that example and they will follow through. Because I think, just requiring it isn't going to be enough. I think you have to show leadership in the upperclassmen and that will trickle down from there.
I also think it needs to be proposed to the students and have it student-centered. So it probably will take some pre-planning, but like asking the students in advance, alumni are coming, what do you want to ask them? And then have the panel be shaped around those questions, because as an introvert, getting up into the mic and asking a question is very intimidating. But I think that it informs all of the alumni here, like, oh, these are what the students want to know, and to be able to best provide that information.
So a few things. I think like a common theme from yesterday, especially at dinner and like today while we're talking, is like you don't know what you don't know. And Hasim and I were talking about you're like as college students, you're just coming out of high school, and we are technically we're 9 years ahead of you. And we went through the whole thing, and now we're out in the industry. And the world is just so different than sometimes what is taught here, and it's so rigorous. But then when you get out into the real world, I think that is what needs to be said. Is you guys need to hear this, and you guys there's a reason why we're having this panel and why you did it last year, and us imparting this advice. It's so invaluable. But I think you also have to think like a student, think like Gen Z, and what'll get them engaged, where what kind of signs are around, and what kind of notices are we putting out? Is this the best space for this panel to happen? What if we have a pickle jar and people are walking by and getting food and getting breakfast? Should we have some food out and get the students interested in a different way? What motivates them? That's something we're talking about. But even they are gonna. Some people are not going to come, even if it's mandatory, and that's okay. But even the new student center, oh my god, Artist Village is crazy, and you guys have massive TVs everywhere. It's streaming on the inside of that room over there. Can you guys stream it in the residence halls? And that way, people can sit around. I see the giant space. You guys have the common area on each, in multiple sides of the building, and there's giant TVs. That's a great space for that. I mean, you guys have the resources, and I just think it's also about thinking like a student and what they want to see and how they want to go about living their lives and getting that information about opportunities like this.
Okay, I personally only have 2 more questions for you guys. Because this is being recorded, and hopefully maybe some folks after the fact will tune in. I'm curious, how do you define success? Either for yourself personally or in a general sense, whichever you feel closer to.
I think for me, success, if we're speaking professionally, the success that I am shooting towards is to be able to get to a place where I can support myself without the second stream of income being a necessity, where my art can be the thing that supports my life financially. And then in terms of greater success outside of just a professional capacity, I think that is when one can be doing the thing that they love, something that drives them, and they've reached a level of peace and comfortability with what they're doing, and are also looking for things to continue to grow, continue to learn.
So I'll kind of speak on this in a couple of parts, but I think I'll speak on it professionally first. my vision for music education is that I don't think that music education should have to be this elitist thing. And my dream for the world is that every major city should have access to all music education. And my goal and my success would be to have an influence on that to some capacity. I'm working at the Mayor School of Music now, but I think to have any, and currently trying to have influence on that, but getting to a position where I can continue to have a say in what that looks like in the future. That will be my definition of success professionally. I think personally, success looks like, continuing to grow, but feeling a sense of contentment and peace in where I am and where I'm sitting.
I think, at least for me, my definition of success is being real with myself and really having to check my own ego and readjust what my needs are, and whether that means am I happy doing this job or am I happy living in this apartment? Do I like driving in traffic and spending $60,000 on gas? Success for me is just constantly checking in with myself and trying to make those changes, whether they're big or small, and trying to find ways to make myself happy and also, the others around me. And something I'm struggling with right now is trying to stay connected with my friends and my family, and that's something that I want to be successful in my life is those relationships, and it's just a constant balance between work and between personal life, and I think trying to make the scales weigh as equally as possible. That's success for me.
Hi, so I kind of just want to open up this question. It's almost like a question of unasked questions. But I know as you were all thinking of coming here, you probably spent a lot of time reflecting on your time here or just things that you wanted to say or wanted to share. So if there's anything left that you haven't gotten the opportunity to say, whether it's a piece of advice or maybe a story or something that you really wanted to share but nobody asked a question that you thought, okay, I can bring this up without totally going off topic. I just kind of want you to have the opportunity to say something that was important to you.
Good question. No. Yeah.
Man, I once had a teacher who did that on a test, and it was my favorite thing. I love it. Yeah.
I think I've said the things that I really have been weighing on me, but I think the one thing that I wish that someone had said when I was here is that we have made an incredibly difficult choice. People make choices to choose careers to go out and they'll get a job tomorrow and they'll have it till they die, and that kind of stability is a wonderful thing. That there are days that I wish, but I wish someone had said, it will be difficult, there will be difficult days. It doesn't change the fact that you love what you're doing. It doesn't change the fact that you're in the right space and on the right path. The path is not level. It may go down, it may go up, but you're going in the right direction. Because 5 years out, the hard days can sometimes feel really, really hard, and it is sometimes hard to see through that fog and know that there is another side. And I would like to say, having gotten to the other side many times, you've got to keep going through them. And it's okay to feel them. It is not a assessment of yourself or your talent or your potential. If you have those feelings, if you have those hard days, if you have doubts, it's a hard path that we've chosen. It's a wonderful path that we've chosen, and it's okay that it's hard sometimes.
Julie Taymor said this yesterday at her talk back. She said to just play, and I think that's one of the biggest things we should be doing while in these 4 years here. I think as a dancer, we're thinking, oh, I'm just gonna go into a company, they're gonna tell me exactly what I need to be doing. They're gonna choreograph everything on me. Bull hockey, it's not true. While I was here, I did not really dive into composition. It was not something that I was really interested in. Creating my own work was not something I was interested in, so I was like, oh, we're just gonna create this, it'll be fine, I'm gonna get an A, it's gonna work. The first company I joined, I was asked to choreograph myself. And she said, we're gonna work this. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what we do. So really dive into things that are uncomfortable and be okay, create without judgment, and know that's totally fine because that's exactly what you're gonna do.
Good question.
Such a good question. I would like to say, embrace adversity. I think that adversity is kind of a prerequisite to growth. You have to fail in order to learn. Quite literally, I know it's like kind of cliche, but quite literally, before you can run, you have to walk, and before you walk, you have to fall. You know, and I know that things are changing, which change is inevitable and often a good thing. A lot of things are changing. Some things that will remain constant, or that there's no substitution for hard work. There's also no substitution for talent. You do need both. Yeah, like just embrace the adversity. Like let it be hard. You're here for 4 years, and when you get out, like what this is. This school. All of us are here now because we enjoyed our time here. We had amazing experiences, and all those sleepless nights, and all the classes where like you were crying afterwards, and or during. You know, the times where you question your worth, like all of that stuff, like as hard as it was in the moment, I think was actually additive.
Build character.
Yeah, build character. Yeah. But for real, like embrace adversity. It's how you grow.
I would say that you should ask questions. Always ask questions, and I've continued to do this throughout my career. And because like when I don't know something, and I just sit there wondering what it is, and then I just feel embarrassed, and then I'm just like, I guess I'll just go on not knowing. I did it yesterday. What was it? We did the alphabet soup. D. Yeah, I didn't know. It was like D. Something, and then like Patrick explained what the word was, and like I know like, a lot of people seem to know what it was at the table. And I was just like, yes, it's like okay, I'll just ask the question because I want to know. I want to know, and I think also in that instance, you should ask your teachers those questions because they might not know the answers all the time, and like you should challenge them. And if they don't have the answer, well, you can always be like, hey, okay, I'll go check it out, but like, let's talk more about it. I want to know about this thing. Or you can go back and like, did you figure out the answer to that? And they may be like, oh, they're pushing me to get outside of my comfort zone and learn more. Yeah, ask questions, always, forever. Ask your doctor questions too.
I want to be cognizant of time. I'm not sure what I've already was having this.
Yeah, this is not a question. I just would like to point out something that UNCCA has done fantastically well, which was to accept you here and to bring you here, because you are all amazing people.
Oh,
thank you so much.
Oh, perfect timing. So, final question, short and sweet. How can, if current students would like to connect with us, how can they best get in contact with you?
Yeah.
Where can they follow you? How would you like to become available?
Instagram.
And what's your handle? So they can literally, like, if they're watching this, they can find you.
Sarah.k.forbes on Instagram.
I'm Jordan Boatman. If you search Jordan Boatman, you'll find Jordan Boatman.
Tiffany Chen Designs. I think we're going really fast. They're really good typing.
Oh. Oh. We'll go back down.
Okay, so mine is on Instagram, Frosted Cupcake. Cupkit. Like a cupcake, but Kit. Ice honey.
Yours again.
Yeah, mine is Tiffany Chen, Chen Designs.
And again, I'm Jordan Boatman. And if you search Boatman, like a boat and a man,
Okay.
you will find me.
Sarah.k.forbes, Forbes like the magazine.
There you go.
No. Hasia Muhammad. Probably the only one.
Okay, I'm also the only Jordan Boatman.
Let me have my moment. And it's spelled like it sounds. Hassiem. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. And
Yeah.
you can also, if you want to email me, you can go through my website. Yeah, that's probably.
I feel like once you find our things, you can DM us. Yeah.
Also, like, you could plug if we could give our social medias, emails, whatever, to Karen. And
There you go,
And
that's
then they could blast it out to the students.
Karen got us here. Karen can find us.
But thank you all so much.
Before we end, I want to say this. Week before last, I went to the Bethesda Marathon, and I saw that handsome young man who is simply muscle with skin. It's one of the most wonderful, beautiful, magical productions of Shakespeare I've ever seen. He was one half of Caliban in The Tempest. Teller, Finn Teller did the magic, and Plautus did this extraordinary choreography. Perhaps, Hasim, you'd like to tell us who Caliban was and how you did that?
All right. Thank you, Bessida. Very sweet. And it was great seeing you in Maryland. That was amazing. He and Ashley Gage Jansen, who's a previous faculty member here, went to Bethesda to see myself and another alum, Robati, who's also in the cast. Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing play. It was, I think, for me, not just that I was in it, it was the best version of that play I had seen as well, just in the concept. And I was just grateful to be a part of the opportunity. It was an opportunity to play a role I'd always wanted to play and to do it in a new, fun, and inventive way. And I truly just feel a lot of gratitude. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say, we will look for opportunities for students to take advantage of this. Thank you to those of you in the room for taking advantage of this. I learned so much every time. I hope you did. Please join me in thanking our amazing